Get to work. Go on.
Hey everybody, Gears here, and while I'm between coats and before I get to gloss, this is something I should have done early on, and that's to match up the radar eye to the dome itself. The main primary technique that's used to get it to fit right, because even an aluminum piece wouldn't necessarily fit exactly, so there's always a little finagling, and when you have a resin piece like this, it's definitely not going to fit the contour exactly, and it'll be a little wobbly. Primary trick for that is to put a piece of sandpaper down, a little tighter than I have it here, put the eye in place where it should be, and then rub back laterally so you start getting that shape into the back side of this. In addition to that, here's the technique I'll be doing on this. I'll be laying down some plastic saran wrap, taping it into place, screwing the eye down into place where it goes, and then I'm going to fill in the sides with some Ava's epoxy. Then I'll let that sit for at least 7 hours, if not a full 24, and then that should fit everything along the sides, every little weird little shape that doesn't quite go, and so on. So I've got 3 out of 4 going here because it's this far corner. These top 2 sides have a really great fit. The bottom is a good fit. This corner here is not so. So I'm going to leave that one loose and get the others into place. You can see how much of a wobble is going on there, I would imagine. So fix it in here, putty all that in there. Actually, one thing I will do is I'm going to heat this up and then we'll put it in place. Maybe I can press this into shape just a little better. So apart from boiling some of the paint away, that really didn't do too much except make me need to refinish the entire piece and waste some time and make a bit of a mess in the sanding. So yeah, we're just going to go with the original clay idea. I've put this eye on once before and it turns out I got it cockeyed, and you can see how much of a little bit of a drift is going on there. And that was because I had done the dome upside down, and what I really need to do and I've already gotten a really good ripped apart blister that I don't want to aggravate by doing this too aggressively. I'm going to have to look at this at a distance. The top seems parallel, but the bottom is definitely not. Alright, so after that little bit of fight of getting it into place, here are the kinds of places that I need to fix. That kind of gap, fix this corner down here, fill all of that there. And you can see that's pretty sizably off. So no worries. That's a pretty bad gouge. Maybe sharpen that corner, and then that's not too much of a gap at all, but I'll fill that too, make it really precise. So this will actually happen in 2 passes. First is I'll do all the outside. I'm not going to get to the inside because there's a double ring in there and I don't want to mess with that at all. And I may very well be cutting this out eventually too. So the first pass, get all the outer edges, take it off, take a look at the back side, fill in some of the gaps, put it back on with the plastic still in place, let that set so it gets all squished out, take a look at it again. If it needs another pass, you don't really need to at that point, but for aesthetics perhaps. That's about it. So let me get some gloves on and we'll get to this. We'll also be using some water. Then once this is setting in place, I'm going to let it set 3 hours, maybe 4. Come back with a razor blade, chop out any excess off. Have to immediately wash as much away as possible, otherwise it's really so much easier to do it now while it's wet and before it dries. So once that happens, it's really tough to do anything about it, scraping it off, sanding. Don't just avoid that headache in the first place and wash it all as clean as you can up front. So let's get the camera set. Ava's epoxy is not toxic, however, it does stain your skin for a few days, so if you got some gloves, use them. And just about 3 hours later, I've taken off the eye. It's pretty much as clean or as dirty as you want to look at it, as I had thought it might be. That should all sand away pretty nicely, but I'll still try and give that a quick scrape because it's still, well, it's pretty well hardened at this point at 4 hours. Over on the back here, I've given this a full good sanding to get all the edges nice and even. So here you can see what the plug essentially is and where it goes. Just a little bit right there over on this side. Up here I may have to redo that gap right there. We'll see. I can just put a little bead all around just to fill in some space perhaps. Not too much. So this just needs a primer. This is getting a sanding anyway. There's all this texture up here that needs to be gotten rid of, and I definitely dug down a few layers by accident there, but all that should sand away relatively nicely, as long as I don't get too heavy in any given place and, you know, start putting flat spots or, you know, changing the roundness of the entire thing. That's what really matters there. And now that these holes are all set and that is all set, I can get back to masking this. And yeah, so I suppose sanding is next for this anyway. So that's it for the moment on this. I'll prime it, put it in place, see how it goes, and then if there's any notes, I'll go from there. But otherwise, that's the basic process that may need to be repeated, perhaps not. And yeah. Next up is going to be something else, probably some more sanding. That never-ending sanding. It just keeps going.